Alrighty, folks, how's it going? Shout out to Mets baseball fans all across wherever you're watching this. This is Wardy here with our first of many free agent type live streams here on the channel. Happy Free Agency Day, everybody. Yes, free agency began at 5 p.m. Eastern time at the time of recording this. It's 7 p.m. right now as we're live here this Thursday, that being November 10th. We got a plethora of topics regarding the team in Queens to break down, along with some things across the MLB as a whole. I'm both excited and nervous as all heck to get into this one and what is bound to be a truly hectic offseason for not only the Mets, but across the entire baseball league. But before we get into it all, I just want to shout out every single one of you guys here in the live show. We already have over 200 live viewers. Thank you guys so much for that. We're going to be covering the nit and gritty, all the latest news. Of course, we've broken them down in individual videos on the channel, but I'll expand and share my further thoughts. I'll be answering questions, people here in the live chat, people on replay. Make sure to let me know your thoughts, your biggest takeaways from tonight's show here in the comments below whenever you're watching this. And again, guys, make sure to smash that like and subscribe button. Help us get 100 likes for our first short-term goal here in the live show, and help us get 20K subs. We're only 1,500 away, so thank you guys all so much in advance for your endless support. And do have to let you guys know that today's show, like all shows, is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline is your #1 source for all your sports betting needs, so make sure you head over to betonline.ag using promo code Bleav at BLEAV. BetOnline, it's where the games begin. And folks, let's get into this one. I'm pumped. I'm excited. Again, I'm going to be frank. I do not expect the Mets to do anything tonight, nor do I really expect them to do anything in the coming days. Now, of course, I can be wrong. I'm kind of saying this as well because my schedule is going to be hectic over the weekend. So you may see some breaking news live streams or quick videos on my phone on the go. Hopefully that isn't the case, but we know the Mets have a plethora of free agents that they are now open in the market. We also know that they did extend $19.65 million qualifying offers to 3 of those said free agents, that being in Jacob deGrom, Chris Bassett, and Brandon Nimmo. Taijuan Walker, a somewhat surprise to not receive the QO, but I'll be explaining shortly as to why the Mets most likely did that, along with all the latest rumors and news on the front for the Mets and baseball as a whole. I do see a donation. Thank you so much for that, my friend. Hype in the chat to you. Let's see. Train24, thank you for the donor. He says, I seriously cannot believe we have reached the point where we might lose Nimmo and deGrom. I also can't believe I'd rather keep Nimmo. It's a crazy world we're living in as Mets fans. I mean, I don't think you're wrong. There's a reason why Brandon Nimmo is perceived as a top priority among any other free agent. You know, it was Nimmo and Diaz, assumably. And when you look at the center field market in particular, it makes endless sense as to why Brandon Nimmo is deemed as the top guy to prioritize right now out of many. And that's crazy to say, even when you have the best pitcher in baseball, arguably, now a free agent. You have Chris Bassett, you have Taijuan Walker. Your entire rotation, for the most part, is in the open market. But again, money talks in both a good and negative fashion, especially when it gets to the likes of Jacob deGrom, who's going to come at a pretty penny should he return to Queens or wherever he may go. But again, thank you so much for the donut. I appreciate that. Yes, it is, in fact, free agency season. So shout out every single one of you guys here in the live show. I'm going to do a quick roll call. That being in Hobb, how's it going? Jack, Tyler, Explosive, Jared, Harrison, Suka, Al, Jeff, Paul, Josh, Marco, Darnell, Michael, let's see, Paul, Plasma, Isaiah, Mike, all you guys. Dan, I apologize if I don't pronounce your name right away. Trust me, I'm going to try to get as many comments as I possibly can. We're just starting the live show, but let's start off the show the best way I know how, and that's by breaking down the latest signings for the New York Mets, because we've already done live streams. Edwin Diaz returns on that record breaker of 5 years, $105 million, has potential to just be a 3-year contract should he opt out after 3, has potential to be a 6-year contract if the Mets continue his deal for 1 more year once his 5th season concludes. So there's a lot of excitement there with Edwin Diaz, and rightfully so. Daniel Vogelbach was picked up on his team option. Cheap thing for the Mets to do. Made sense for a guy that had an 830-plus OPS during his time in Queens when he was acquired around the trade deadline from the Pittsburgh Pirates for Colin Holderman. And then you have the big one today in Carlos Carrasco. Funny enough, guys, the video on Carlos Carrasco that you see on the channel, I cheated. I recorded that last night because I knew that Carlos Carrasco was going to be returning to Queens. I just had that gut feeling. I wasn't even given intel. You know, I have people that I know in the organization that tell me things a couple of days before, which goes in hand with the first video that dropped today on Michael Conforto. I heard early yesterday that the Mets were considering Michael Conforto already from a friend of mine that has connections. However, I was waiting to see a further report come out and it did from Will Salmon. We broke that down in a video that came out this morning. Make sure to check it out, but we'll expand on it more here. But Cookie, I had full expectations that he was returning on that 1 year, $14 million deal. He did exactly that. And again, it's basically, do you want to buy out Cookie Carrasco for $3 million, waste away that, or bring him back on essentially $11 million? That was a difference here, right? So I understood why the Mets brought Cookie back. Gives them stability, one less thing to have to worry about in the back half of their rotation for at least the 2023 season. And they also brought back Curtis, the right-hand reliever, who did not pitch at all in the 2022 campaign with the Mets. However, can touch high 90s on the fastball, has some nice off-speed stuff. The Mets picked him up last offseason and has yet to pitch in a Mets uniform. So he's coming off of, I don't know if it's Tommy John, whatever injury is. He missed all of 2022 because of that, and he's someone that looks like a sneaky pickup for the Mets to potentially have competing for this bullpen in 2023. So a guy to keep out for, as always. But we talked about the free agents a little bit already. Jacob deGrom, Chris Bassett, Brandon Nimmo. Why were these guys given qualifying offers? Well, it's simple. You know, if the Mets lose any of these guys, which again, it feels almost like a coin flip, even though that they want to bring all of them back, should they lose any, they're going to get a compensation pick. I don't like comp picks. It's annoying. I thought we would have been done with it after the lockout, but the negotiations did not go in our way of wanting comp picks to end. And that's something that's going to be a detriment to the Mets and how they go about external free agents, because there's already guys that were given qualifying offers today that I just discussed yesterday in our 5 Mets free agent targets video that are now unlikely to be pursued by the Mets because of the fact that they were given a QO. So we'll expand on that here shortly. However, again, deGrom, Bassett, Nimmo, these are all guys that are going to more than likely get mid to long-term deals. The long-term deal is going to be Brandon Nimmo. He's getting between 5 and 7 years. Jacob deGrom is going to get between 3 and 5 more than likely. Bassett can get potentially upwards of 3 or even 4, even at the age of 33. So these guys, they're not going to sign those QOs. They have a 10-day period in order to accept or decline said contract. And in doing so, the Mets will at least have that cushion at minimum. If they lose a Jake, if they lose a Brandon, if they lose a Bassett, at least they have the comfort of knowing that they will get a compensation pick. However, and this is probably the biggest question mark of the day, why did the New York Mets not give a qualifying offer to Taijuan Walker? And after further consideration, because, you know, could it be a reason that, oh, maybe the Mets want to give him a multi-year deal, even though that they essentially want to do that already with Bassett, so it doesn't really add up. Maybe they want to give a little bit of respect to Taijuan Walker and not have a compensation pick be a detriment to him being pursued by endless teams, because he's going to be a hot commodity in free agency, probably looking for a contract between 3 and 5 years as well. Or is it probably actually the more likely scenario? Maybe the Mets did not want to give him a qualifying offer because they were concerned that Taijuan would accept it at roughly $20 million a year to run it back with the Mets next year. If I'm Taijuan Walker, even with my value currently in free agency, he loves Queens. He would like to come back. I don't think it would be the most outlandish thing in the world should he sign that qualifying offer. So from that perspective, you look at the Mets here, they need to be very creative and very strategic about how they allocate their money. They're not going to be able to bring all these starters back to the rotation as much as they would like to. And there was already pre-reporting entering the offseason that Taijuan Walker was on the outside looking in, supposedly, of team interest in what their priorities are. From the Brandon Nimmos, the Edwin Diaz's, the Jacob deGroms, Chris Bassett's. Then after all of them, then you talk about Taijuan Walker. So if that's the case, maybe there is something there that the Mets just don't feel comfortable enough bringing back Ty, even on a 1-year deal of $20 million, when they potentially could figure something out on a cheaper option, say via trade, because there's going to be a lot of trade rumblings going on. The Mets are heavily involved already in the trade market as they are in free agency, and it will not be surprising in the slightest should the Mets land a starter. Maybe it's not going to just be from the free agent market. We really could see something via trade here if the Mets finally decide to pony up and commit to giving up some prospect capital. Yes, it's not easy because the Mets don't have the deepest farm in the world. However, there are 1 or 2 guys that are in their top 5, top 10 that I do think are able to be parted with, and it's led by someone like Mark Vientos, because with the Mets wanting to get creative and giving more playing time to Brett Baty, Francisco Alvarez, those are guys that are likely not going to be starting in their normal positions of third base and catcher next year. So in that scenario, you want to get them more acclimated at the MLB level with the bat, So you throw them in DH some games. And if you do that, then you don't have as much room for Mark Vientos, especially when you have Daniel Vogelback, who's coming back for the year, and the Mets are expected to, at minimum, acquire one more bat, if not multiple. So for all those reasons, the Mets do have some prospects that you would at least think at this point, after getting a little sample size of these guys, who they are more in favor of staying versus being willing to part with. But again, we have a lot of offseason, get into that and their potentials via trade. Point is that they have a plethora of options. You're going to see the Mets connected to everyone and their mother. I'm surprised they haven't been connected to my mother yet. I know that they're probably showing interest as we speak. And no, I'm not joking. Literally, this Mets team, as much as I love covering them, it drives me nuts. It drives me nuts knowing that they are tagged to every team imaginable. Paul says, I see that the Red Sox are tagged to Tyler Anderson and Lugo. Oh, yeah, by the way, guys, if you see any news while we're doing the live show, do not hesitate from tagging me regarding said news on Twitter. Please make sure to let me know. I greatly appreciate it because we're going to be following along the live chat. So I'm going to be talking and looking at you guys far more than I am looking on social media. I think that's a little rude if I'm just doing that for 10, 20 minutes straight, So that's something definitely to keep in mind. But let's go back to who are the Mets free agents. Okay, Jacob deGrom, Chris Bassett, Taijuan Walker. There's your starters. Got it. Relievers, Trevor May, Seth Lugo, Adam Ottavino, Michael Givens, who the Mets declined bringing back on his team option, which was only a couple mil. So you're probably wondering, why did the Mets do that? They decide not to bring him back on $3.5 million. However, they let him go for $1.5 million. It's not like Givens was expensive. So that is a little bit of a head scratcher, I think you could rightfully argue. However, I will say that the Mets clearly have a plan for what they're trying to do with this bullpen. I think a full revamp is pretty much inevitable right now with all their pending free agents in that said area. But Michael Givens was someone that once he settled down quickly was a serviceable reliever for the Mets. And he was someone that I wasn't opposed to returning. However, I did make a note in my latest podcast, Bleav in Queens with Anthony Recker and Joe Sorrell, that I did not think that he would be returning. And that looks like that is in fact coming to fruition with him not being picked up by the Mets on his team option today. Trevor Williams, a guy I would love back to the Mets, but I think he's going to come at a little bit of a cost because of the fact that he's so reliable and many different type of multi-inning roles, multi-inning eating roles. There we go. That was a tongue twister for you. First of many tonight. Joely Rodriguez. Yeah, Joely, he was a roller coaster for me this past year. I don't know how I would feel if the Mets bring him back. It wouldn't be it wouldn't bother me nearly as much as long as the Mets make sure that they land more reliable lefties, say cough, and Andrew Chafin that we talked about yesterday. Please get Andrew Chafin. Tommy Hunter. Love Tommy. I wouldn't mind him coming back on a small deal as well. And position players. I left out the great one himself and Terrence Gore, the pinch running machine. He declined to be sent down outright to AAA, so he's a free agent. Maybe the Mets will bring him back midseason next year to try to get a deep World Series run going again. We'll see. No less, Brandon Nimmo and Tyler Naquin are your true only position players that are available via free agency. I don't really see a world where Tyler Naquin comes back for a lot of reasons, mainly because he was a strikeout machine. And Brandon Nimmo is a guy that I have high expectations is going to return to the Mets. But why are the Mets considering Michael Conforto? Now, if you didn't check out the video earlier today, I highly suggest you do. I really went as in-depth as I possibly can in only like 8.5-minute video, so make sure to check it out. But Michael Conforto is an interesting discussion, and I knew that this was going to happen sooner than later with you guys. And again, continue smashing that like and subscribe button as you're here in the live show, guys. Help us get 20K subs for next short-term goal. Help us get to 100 likes here in the live show. Help us get to a couple hundred by the end of the show. Michael Conforto, off the rip, is he someone that I want to return to the Mets, given the circumstance that Brandon Nimmo does not return? No. And why am I saying no? It's because, yes, we got Saucedo off waivers, the southpaw from the Blue Jays yesterday, had 13.5 ERA in the MLB, but again, he's a minors guy that can compete for the bullpen still. Raw reaction is I don't want Michael Conforto. Because if the Mets get Michael Conforto, that means 9 out of 10 times that they did not bring Brandon Nimmo back. Brandon Nimmo is such an importance for this Mets team. And there's a lot of Mets fans that are going out there that are seemingly brushing this aside. And I don't know why. Let's see. Someone said to check Heyman. I'll check Heyman real quick. Again, guys, if there's actual news that comes out on Twitter, please don't hesitate for making me for letting me know. I greatly appreciate that. But let's see here. Let me check Heyman real quick. Okay, nothing new with Heyman. Got it. But going back to Michael one more time. For Nimmo, rather. For people that I don't understand how there are still fans out there that don't understand the importance of Brandon Nimmo. Brandon Nimmo is casually one of the best on-base players that baseball has in the game today. He has been up there with the top dogs, the elites in baseball since he arrived in Queens. Yes, has he had injury problems in his career? Of course he has. Who hasn't, right? It feels like so many guys have been injury prone. And Brandon Nimmo is the top dog by far. He is in a class up here. Every other center field free agent is all the way around pond scum. Natural center fielders. We're not talking about Judge. That's a corner outfielder, DH, even though, yes, he'll get more time in the outfield, and he's likely not coming to Mets. Let's talk about realistic options. Brandon Nimmo is in a class of his own in this free agent market. He's a hot commodity. He's getting over $100 million. You can guarantee it this offseason. You do not let this man walk. For everything that he has brought to this team, not just from being the most selfless guy imaginable, still driving his 2012 Altima, but a guy that is the best leadoff hitter that you could ask for. When he is right, when he's not swinging and missing on first pitches too much, which he did down the stretch, I agree 100% on that. His normal approach is having the one of, if not the best eye in baseball, sprinting down first, getting that walk. Those are going to be imperative for the Mets if they want to make sure that they get as much run production as possible. This guy had 60 RBIs and 100 runs scored in 2022. What does that mean? He gets on base, and that is exactly who you want in your leadoff spot, and a Brandon Nimmo that played gold glove caliber defense in center for the entire 2022 season. This guy's defense went from being abysmal a couple years ago to some of the best natural center fielders now in the game today. So for all those reasons, injuries or not, you do not have better options out there. Don't tell me that you do. I respectfully disagree with the notion that Starling Marte shifting to center is a good idea. Does it have potential to be good? Absolutely, but the risk is very much there. You want to talk about injury prone? Starling Marte's already in his mid-30s. The guy couldn't even run the bases consistently because he dealt with ailments in either his hammy or he dealt with an ailment that we saw there in his muscle. What was it? He had abdominal muscle, a strain or whatever. They had surgery on this offseason that he's missing a couple months of not doing anything now. Starling Marte is only going to be more injury prone as he gets older. That's a very likely scenario to happen. A guy that didn't play one measly game that we saw there in center for the entire 2022 season. It's almost like it makes sense to keep Marte in the corner. Now, again, you could argue the Mets got Marte in part as a cushion in case they lost Brandon Nimmo after this past season. That may be a fair argument. I'm not necessarily disagreeing with that. But when you have a guy playing the corner all year, a guy that is not getting any younger, the potential for injuries are substantial. If Starling Marte plays in center every day again, and he tweaks something, he pulls something, he's out for a couple months, that is a huge detriment to this club. And that's something that if the Mets are smart, they should not afford letting that risk. So Michael Conforto, while I love the guy, he's a big question mark. What are you getting with the bat? What are you getting with the defense? I was a big fan. I thought Michael's defense was very underrated and right. However, he hasn't played all 2022. He has this shoulder issue. Is that all fine and dandy? Great. Sign him on a proven contract. I'm fine if you put him more so in the DH split time of Vogie. Sign me the hell up. He's got more pop than Vogie. He hits for opposite field, and he's not going to cost you a bargain. I'm fine with that. However, I'm not fine with going down this route because you decided that Brandon Nimmo, he's not enough. And I don't think that's the way that the Mets are going about this process. So don't get me wrong. But the point again is Brandon Nimmo is such a top priority for this team because of the availability in the market. If there were a plethora of key center field free agents, let's take it a step further. If this was last season, okay, and Brandon Nimmo and Starling Marte were both in the same free agency class, we have a different discussion here. Completely different discussion here. But that's not the case now. And because that's not the case, and because Brandon Nimmo just came off of a very fine season for the Mets, is in the correct prime of his career, make sure you go out and bring this guy back, okay? It just frustrates me. I'm not against bringing back Michael Conforto if you want to get a sneaky bat. And I actually think that there's more potential here with Michael, even with bringing Brandon Nimmo back, because the guy that I would want most out of the corner outfielders, I could rightfully argue, is no longer going to be a potential fit for the Mets that we discussed in yesterday's video on 5 free agent targets for the Amazons. Who was my number 4 target in that video? It was Jock Pearson. And what did Jock Pearson just do? He was just offered the $19.65 million qualifying offer from the San Francisco Giants. I'm going to go on a limb and say that this guy probably takes it, considering he's coming off of a 1-year, $6 million deal with San Francisco when he grew up a Giants fan. He's from the Bay Area. He loved it in San Francisco, and now they're trying to go all in, and they even went a step further and gave him the QO, which was a surprise to many, including myself. Even in the scenario where he declines a qualifying offer, I really will be surprised if the Mets go after him. The Mets are not, more than likely, not going to be going after any free agents on a short-term contract for having to give up a compensation pick when they're not a elite star at the position. When we talk about a Trey Turner, a Carlos Correa, anyone along those lines, it's a different discussion because those guys are among the most elite, again, players that can completely transform your lineup, both offensively and defensively. Jock Pearson is not that. However, he was a great profile to be in the corner and at DH, and now the Giants just had to go out and give him the damn QO. So I think Jock Pearson's probably staying in San Francisco at this rate, so cross him off the board more than likely from our video yesterday. I'm pissed off about it. I really am, just because we just came out with the vid. But again, this will only be the first of many times this offseason where I go and discuss a player, and either later that day, if not the next day over the 24 hours, that player's unavailable. And there is a player that's unavailable from said video yesterday, and that was one of the most hot, beautiful, absolutely flame-throwing right-handed relievers in the market, and Robert Suarez. He declines his option to stay with the Padres, goes for free agency. Shame on me. He was negotiating a multi-year deal, signed a 5-year, $46 million deal. Congratulations to him. Congratulations, Padres fan, and my boy Hogwatch. Make sure to check him out. Borna. So there's that. So you can cross him off the board of one of many relievers that the Mets will be considering and going after this offseason. So essentially, 2 of the 5 players that we discussed yesterday are already off the board, and it's been 24 hours. So that's a little annoying. That's a little frustrating. But again, that's the nature of the offseason for agency. These things tend to happen. So from here now, where are we at? We got over 500 live viewers. Thank you guys all so much for being here. Greatly appreciate you all. I'm going to check Twitter real quick to make sure I'm not missing any important news. Bear with me 1 second. I don't believe I am. So let's get into, okay, Trey Turner. Let's talk about Trey Turner here for a minute, shall we, folks? Bear with me. I'm going to get some H2O. If you see my ears, look how freaking red they're. It's a sauna in here. It's so hot. Okay. Yoshida, I don't see happening. I think he's going to go to the Yanks if he's going to go New York, not Queens. But Trey Turner, we love Trey Turner. Why do we love Trey Turner? Because he kicks our ass. That's why. You love the guy because you know there's potential of landing him now. Do I think Trey Turner is going to land here? No, I do not. For the sole reason that there is another team in the NL East that's looking for a shortstop. Not the Atlanta Braves, because they can bring back Dansby. Or even if they want to get Correa, because they tried for Correa last offseason. A lot of people forget that. That's a sleeper for Correa. It's the Philadelphia Phillies. The Phillies have been connected to Trey Turner for literally a year now. This guy is he's perfect for any team. You can put him in the leadoff spot. You can put him in the middle of the order. You get very creative with Trey Turner. He's a stolen bags machine, can give you 30 stolen bags a year. He's someone that can give you 20-plus bombs a year, 100 RBIs, 300 average, 800, 850, even north than 900 OPS. He's 29 years old. You can play him at second base. You can maybe consider him at third. You can put him in center for some games because of his elite speed. However, as much as I want Trey Turner to come to the Mets, and I do not think the Mets are out by any stretch right now, anything's possible with Steve Cohen. We know that. And there's one team out there that I think is going to absolutely throw him the bag, prioritize him like no matter what. I do think it's the Philadelphia Phillies. So the reigning World Series losers in the Philadelphia Phillies, they will be making a big push for a top shortstop this offseason. Hopefully it's not Trey. I would love for the Mets to get Trey, but again, if the Mets get Trey, does that mean they don't get Brandon Nimmo back, right? Does that mean that they don't bring Jake back? How much money is Steve Cohen willing to work with this offseason? He has a limit. That's why the Mets are already exploring trade options as well. They're trying to get their best bang for their buck in the sense of still going past $300 million. We know that, but still a team at the same time that is wary that they can only go so far. because once you get past a certain luxury tax threshold, you are taxed 60% for every dollar you spend. That's a shit ton of money. The Mets, as is, without bringing back any of their key free agents, this was prior to the Edwin Diaz signing, folks, had a projected payroll for 2023 of $220 plus million with arbitration of guys like Pete Alonso. Now, new Silver Slugger, the second in Mets history at the second base position, that being a Jeff McNeil, was just announced before we started the live show. Shout out to you, Jeff. Talk about big hits, baby. You deserve it all. So proud of you. Talk about a comeback kid. That's Jeff in a nutshell. But you have all these guys. $220 million before you brought back Diaz, before you consider deGrom, Nimmo, everybody. That's still one of the top payrolls in baseball, okay? So the Mets are going to have a limit. I assure you that they will. Let's see. Jose Abreu likely to go to a new team. Yeah, that was expected. We already knew the rumblings that the White Sox are going to be partying with Jose Abreu, which is just crazy to me. Actually asinine. Jose Abreu is the face of the White Sox. Is still a phenomenal player, phenomenal hitter, first base, DH, whatever you want to do with him. He is the definition of that team. Jose Abreu has been a major factor in helping draw young Cuban prospects in international free agency. So, kind of nuts to see Jose Abreu likely departing from Chicago. But man, I wouldn't mind Abreu if you want to platoon him with Vogie. However, you have two guys essentially that can't play a position outside of first base, and that's concerning. I would prefer if the Mets didn't put themselves in a position like that again. I want more flexibility. I think the Mets want that too, or at least I hope. Edwin, thank you for the dono. I appreciate that. Worry, do you think the Mets may go with Peterson and McGill for the back end of the rotation if deGrom goes elsewhere and we can't find a suitable replacement for deGrom who's available? I don't think the Mets are going to bank on that. I think the Mets may have a situation for the rotation where they're going to have Peterson and McGill battle it out for the final spot in the rotation. I think that's definitely a likelihood. Absolutely. Because I very likely can see a world where the Mets bring both Jake and Bassett back. And in doing so, you already have your 4 out of the 5 for the rotation. The only guy you're missing is Ty. So then the Mets would assumably replace Ty with one of Peterson or McGill, which very well can work. The Mets had a rotation for large portions of last year, exactly that, because of the fact that deGrom was hurt for an extended period of time. Who's available? There's a lot of guys available. A name that I was very much enticed with when it came to starting pitching was Tyler Anderson, who came off of a career year with the Dodgers. Anderson was a guy that the Mets have been linked to since the trade deadline of the 2021 season. He was dealt to the Seattle Mariners at the time, and in doing so, Anderson was around, high 3, low 4 ERA type guy in his career. Has a little leg pump in his arsenal and his release point, which is deceptive for the hitter. And the Dodgers took him to new heights this year because they always have a pitching lab going. And the Mets did hire a guy, I'm forgetting the guy's name, coming from the Reds as an assistant pitching coach that was part of Driveline organization. Driveline does a phenomenal job using sabermetrics to get the best out of pitchers between velo, pitch grips, and many other things. So I'm very happy with what the Mets are doing with their coaching staff right now and bringing them in as part of the pitching development or part of the organization. But going back to the point is, Tyler Anderson is a guy I was definitely a fan of. However, he was given a qualifying offer. Very good chance that he signed said qualifying offer for the Dodgers, in my opinion. Around $20 million a year coming off a career. I wouldn't be surprised if he runs it back with the Dodgers again, or maybe on a 2-year deal still with LA. I don't think he's going to walk. Andrew Heaney is a southpaw that's going to be highly desirable. A guy that was a laughing stock with the Angels and then traded the Yanks, was just as bad. Goes to the Dodgers pitching lab. They get him right. And in doing so, now he's going to be a hot commodity. Kind of like a Pearson type. Can give you 5 innings as a starter. Can give you some innings as a reliever. Definitely a southpaw. I hope the Mets have some consideration in there. But the big behemoth among starters that is a southpaw is a man that was given a qualifying offer today in Carlos Rodon. Rodon, one of the best starters in baseball. Wanted this guy last year. Was upset when the Mets didn't get him. Understood the injury concern. However, I would go as far to say that I would almost want Carlos Rodon more than Justin Verlander. As nuts as that is to say, I think there's fair arguments here. I have concerns. Let's talk hypothetically. Jake walks, right? Justin Verlander comes in to replace Jake on a 1 or 2 year deal at the age of 40. You got Max and Verlander going back at it like they did during their time in Detroit. What happens? What happens if age finally hits these guys? It's going to happen at some point, right? I don't want to deal with that situation. If the Mets are going to get someone that can be susceptible to injuries, I'd rather be a younger guy, and that's why Carlos Rodon is so appealing. That, along with the fact that he's a flame-throwing southpaw that has a disgusting slider, beautiful 1-2 punch with his arsenal, would love him. If you're going to give away a compensation pick for a qualifying offered type player that declines said QO, you want to do it for a top player in his respective position, and Carlos Rodon is certainly that at the starting pitching role, as is Trey Turner for shortstop, infield, outfield, however you want to utilize him, and so on and so forth. Thank you for the donut. I appreciate that, buddy. And here's what I will also say. Is it impossible that the Mets go out, they bring back Jake, and they land another big starter? No. However, I do think that in that scenario where it happened, that second big starter would not be via free agency, and I think it would be via trade. And there's a couple guys that come on my mind. There's going to be rumblings with the Shane Biebers of the world again, the Corbin Burns. The Milwaukee's very much going in a retool again. They're going to be a team that's going to compete, but they're also going to be a team that's going to be lackluster more than likely, unless their rotation gets fully healthy again and they bank on their pitching, because that's all they know how to do, because they don't know how to get consistent offense and smack them across the face. So definitely something to be looking out for. We'll be discussing more on the trade front next week for sure. Shout out to my good buddy, that being Grant. Grant is the head of Jenny Mets on Twitter. Make sure to check him out. One of the best Mets-centric fan pages that you can find out there on Twitter. Over 40,000 followers. Make sure to drop him a follow as well. Shout out to you, Grant. Appreciate you being in here. And again, appreciate everyone being in here, guys. Said he would like to join Texas. I did see the report from John Heyman that deGrom has interest in the Rangers. And if you are somehow, some way surprised by that, then you're not paying attention. Jacob deGrom knows this is a business. He knows that he was underpaid during his time with the Mets. He's looking for the bag. He's looking for Max Scherzer money at minimum. Rightfully so. And I don't want to hear any schmuck out there that says that Jake, he doesn't deserve it because he didn't pitch for like a 16-month period. I'm sorry, you're forgetting the Jake that still won back-to-back Cy Youngs and won that second Cy Young on that new deal with the Mets, who took a pay cut to stay with the Mets? Are you forgetting about the Jacob deGrom that, when healthy, still has the best stuff humanly possible on the planet Earth? Jacob deGrom has seen the contract's been thrown out there these past couple years. It probably bothers him, and I don't blame him. He's going to get the bag. So yes, of course he's going to show interest in a team that has interest in him. He's going to do that with anyone that inquires about him, as long as they take him seriously. That is what the Texas Rangers are doing. That is what the New York Mets are doing. Maybe that's what the Atlanta Braves are doing. Maybe that's what the Baltimore Orioles may do, even though that's getting ahead of ourselves. They haven't spent for so long. That may change this offseason, however. I'm trying to say, no one should be concerned at this juncture about Jacob deGrom and his sweepstakes. It's so premature. Once we have further reporting come out, we'll discuss what happens. What we know is that Jacob deGrom very much would like to return to the Mets, as long as the Mets give him what he's asking. It's as simple as that. And yes, the Texas Rangers are going to come in. They're going to be paying the ass. They're going to skyrocket his price a little bit more. And should he not return, it's a situation more than likely where maybe the Mets don't want to go 4 or 5 years for Jacob deGrom. And at the end of the day, as much as it would kill me, I can live with that more, especially if he goes to Texas, knowing that he's out of the NL entirely. Okay? It would heartbreak me. But you understand, right? Not wanting to give roughly 40 mil, if not more, a year for 4 or 5 years for Jacob deGrom. 3 years, yes, I think you do that. You know, he wants the Max Scherzer deal. Scherzer's on a 3-year deal, opt out after 2. Okay? Jake wants similar deal, probably. But if Texas says, you know, we're gonna act like drunken sailors right now, we're gonna be like, fuck it. You know, our offense isn't completely constructed at all. Our rotation's in disarray. Our bullpen, you know, decent. We don't know what we want to do, but we just hired Bruce Bochy, and he's the season manager. So we're just gonna go all in. We're just gonna go do it. So we're gonna go throw a bag the same way that we did for 2 guys that were overpaid last year. Marcus Semien, who had an underwhelming year. At really slow start, picked it up. Corey Seager, never going to live up to that contract, in my opinion. At least fully, for sure. Jacob deGrom, Carlos Rodon. There are early rumblings as well that Carlos Rodon is a potential likelier fit to land in Texas than Jacob. That's encouraging. However, we don't know. And someone made a good point. Yes, Texas has no state tax. Correct. I'm sure that's appealing for Jake if he's truly trying to get the biggest bag. No denying that. Will the market be different, though? However, it's not like Jake cannot make money through different avenues, because if there's one upside about being in New York, as much as their taxes are absolutely outrageous, and we all know that, right? He will be getting a lot of money from sponsorships, endorsements, things of that nature. Something that he may not get to the same degree should he go to Texas. And yes, big market, but the Texas Rangers is a different feel. I can't sit here and say how large a Texas Rangers fan base is. They obviously had their tremendous runs in the early 2000s. It was the Rangers or the Giants winning the World Series, felt like every year, right? It was then back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. However, things have changed since then. So I'm curious to see what that market is like and just how deep they're trying to go into this one, that being the Rangers and their pursuit of not only Jake, but others this offseason. Also, Jake wants to win. He isn't going to win that isn't making the playoffs. Again, here's the thing, though. We know Jake wants to win, but he also wants to be the highest paid pitcher in baseball. So there's a business aspect that kicks in here when we're discussing these things, okay? Jacob deGrom, let's say hypothetically for a minute, right? The biggest deal he's offered from any other team is 2 years, including the Mets. Let's talk hypothetical right now, right? Say the Mets offer him a 2-year deal, $100 million. No team offers better. Then the Texas Rangers swoop in and they say, hey, we're going to give you 4 and we're going to double that, obviously, in doing so. No state tax, 4-year commitment, full no trade clause, nothing. You can have as many opt-outs as you want. This is all hypothetical. This type of thing is not going to happen. So let me explain. And there's such a gap like that, especially, I promise you that the Rangers not being a playoff team yet will mean absolutely nothing to Jake, because Jake opted out of his contract for the exact same reason that I've just been saying. It's about money. It's about making a statement. It's about saying, hey, I've been underpaid my entire career. I would like to be paid as the highest pitcher in baseball, best pitcher in baseball. I'm better than Garrett Cole. I love Max, but when I'm on, I better stuff than Max. I deserve at minimum what Max is getting. I deserve that. And what I would say to Jacob deGrom is, yes, you do. You absolutely do. So do not sleep on the Texas Rangers this offseason. That was something that I initially stated like a couple weeks ago in a podcast on the channel with Joe Sorrell and Anthony Recker. And Joe mentioned the Rangers to me. And I was like, there's no chance now the Rangers could outbid the Mets. However, they could if we're basing things off of years, right? I don't think it's more so about annual average value, AAA. However, I do think the terms of the years on the contract can be a factor for sure. And it's funny saying that. Shout out to you, Frank. Thank you so much for the kind words in the live show. Shout out to everyone here in the live show, guys, as we are breaking down all the nit and gritty about the starter free agency for not only the Mets, but across baseball as we know it. Of course, guys, if breaking news happens, make sure to tag me into it on Twitter. I do think that's going to be a rather anticlimactic start to free agency. I think that we will see some moves this weekend. However, if anything happens with the Mets, I think it'll be very low level. I think we might just see a reliever or two. This is all hypothetical. I don't think we're going to see anything drastic until really next week. That's what I think. I think teams are really going to start to test the waters now, spend the weekend doing so. And again, I could be wrong. But if I'm a betting man, I would say that the Mets' first major signing might not be until Monday. Am I also saying this because I know I have a hectic weekend personally? I prefer that be the case. Yes. Putting that into existence. So, like I said, if you see any breaking news shows or live streams where I'm in a different setup this weekend or doing it off of my phone and it has a shitty thumbnail for the first 30 minutes to an hour, there's a reason why. But going back to it, not trying to get off topic here. Oh, Andrew Chafin. What did Heyman say? Come on, Twitter, load. I see nothing with Heyman. I see nothing. You guys just clowning me in the chat already? We just started free agency. Oh. You're hearing Mets are close to deal with Chave. Harrison, please stop. How to okay. I need to set up new guidelines for the live streams too. That like it warns you that you can't be giving in fake news here in the chat because I'm not going to accept it. Just not going to. Lefty, that's awesome, my man. I hope everything goes well. Congratulations to you, brother. Okay, let's get back to it. I'm off topic now. Talked about Turner. Talked about Conforto. Talked a little bit, about free agency and trade market. Big markets building for deGrom and Nimmo. Discuss that as well. Man, Nadine, how are you? Great member on the channel. Hope you're doing well. I know that this offseason is going to be crazy for the Mets. Here's my current prediction. I think Brandon Nimmo is going to drag things out a bit. And I also think that Jacob deGrom, while the Mets want to get something done with him sooner than later, I do think Jake is going to drag things a little bit farther than we would want to. So for those reasons, it's going to be very interesting to see how that impacts potentially the Mets market with making free agent and trade moves here. Because how long are they going to allow things to drag out, right? I think that's something that the Mets are heavily considering keeping in mind when evaluating their internal free agents. They don't want to put themselves in a situation, say, like they have in years past, where by letting something drag out, they then miss out on players and decide to settle for less. Or two, go all in for a while just to not get said player. Cough Trevor, cough Bauer. Thank God that happened, though, because if Trevor Bauer happened, Max Scherzer wouldn't be here. And regardless of Scherzer shitting the bed and his final 2 starts of the year with the Mets don't, you can argue the Mets don't get nearly the type of run that they had without Max Scherzer. He was, when healthy, the most consistent and dominant pitcher for the Mets all year long. So, let's see, Josh, I'm doing great. How are you, my friend? Justin Turner was declined by the Dodgers to return. He's a free agent now. I'm not a fan of Justin Turner coming back, unless it's a DH situation where you platoon him with Vogelback. Then I think that there's some appeal to that because Turner actually, even though he's not great at this point in his career in his mid-30s, he is someone that actually still can handle, to a degree, third base, second base, something along those lines, right? He is a guy that can at least be placed somewhere and not just strictly a DH just yet at this point in his career, even though he profiles probably best there. Turner's a guy that will definitely be an upgrade. It's like if you get a Justin Turner, he's upgrading over Darren Ruff. That's how you should evaluate a Justin Turner. The same way that a guy, and I'm blanking on his name right now, that being in AJ Pollock, who the Mets tried to pursue a couple of years ago before he ended up signing with the LA Dodgers. And Pollock was someone that the Mets had interest in because he could play the corner, he could play around the outfield, and he has a solid bat, and he rakes against lefties. So the Mets definitely have an appeal potentially there. Should the Mets go in the hypothetical platoon DH setup again next year, which, again, we don't know if they're going to or not, then AJ Pollock is a potential nice fit for sure. But again, AJ Pollock has been the biggest issue in his career. It's staying on the field. That's another thing to consider. One thing I will say, though, is that if the Mets really settle to run things back without doing much more of an offensive upgrade for this team, I truly fear that we're going to have issues to an extent. I think that while there's potential, absolutely, for guys to step up and have bigger years than what they've had in the past, that a Brett Beatty, a Francisco Alvarez can be game changers if you can get rid of that James McCann contract somehow. That can really take things to new heights. However, I think if the Mets don't really land at least one, proven bat, then they're going to really have some issues. Because, again, it's not just the offense, but making sure they get some more pop out of it with the shift abandoning, which is going to really help this team. But then you look at the rest of the team. The rotation still needs to be figured out, the bullpen. So the Mets, they got a plethora of things that they're dealing with at this moment. I see people talking about Noah Syndergaard in the chat. That ain't going to happen. If Noah Syndergaard comes back to the Mets, it'll probably be the most hilarious thing imaginable. I mean, come on. How about a Zach Wheeler reunion? Yeah, let's go ask the Phillies if he's available. Come on. That's not going to happen. I would love Zach Wheeler back. Don't get me wrong. And he was a man that deserved better than what happened in the World Series with him being pulled. But that's besides the point. The Mets this offseason are in a very interesting spot because they, as I said for a while, I have a very strong gut feeling that the Mets' biggest thing this offseason is going to be more so bringing back their internal guys than it will be their external guys. And the reason why I say that is simply look at the laundry list. Look at it with me. Okay? Even if you don't bring back the majority of the bullpen, you still got Jake. You still got Bassett. You still got Ty, but I think he's out of here. You got Brandon. Just bringing back a Nimmo, deGrom, Bassett alone. Just those three. In a lot of ways is a successful offseason. Then, if you really want to be not only successful, but make sure that you take things up a notch to better what was a awesome regular season that fell short flat on its ass down the stretch into the wild card. You upgrade the bullpen. You get an Andrew Chafin. You get maybe a Nick Martinez, who was just parted with the Padres today. He declined his return there. Now he's a free agent. Nick Martinez is Trevor Williams 2.0. For those that don't know, he was utilized in every role imaginable, just like Trevor Williams this past year. So if Trevor Williams, say, walks for whatever reason, keep an eye on Nick Martinez. Very interesting piece. Signed a one-year deal entering this past year with the Padres, just like Robert Suarez, both coming from the Nippon Pro Baseball League overseas. Both had really, really good years for the Padres. And Martinez started games. He came in middle relief. He came in as a spot starter. He came in to close games. Nick Martinez has done it all for the Padres. He's looking for a nice payday. If you don't bring back Trevor Williams and say you get Martinez a little bit cheaper, go get Nick Martinez. Not against that. That's the guy that I'm sure I'll be discussing more at length this offseason as well. Let's see here. I'm going to just check if I got any more updates there. Let me, everybody, and I'll go further here in the live show. Continue smashing those buttons. I hope you guys have enjoyed the live show. Please don't hesitate from continuing to help us get a 20K subs. Make sure to check out previous videos. Make sure to check out everything, new content on the channel. Do want to let you guys know as well that unless something drastic happens over this weekend, a major move happens regarding the Mets, unless that happens, this will be the last live stream of the week. We will have individual videos over the weekend, should it be need be. However, if there's nothing crazy that happens over the weekend, if it's just some simple rumblings and nothing more than some fluff here or there, the likelihood is there won't be much more content on the channel until Monday next week, given the fact that this is the third form of content today as is. So a lot of content, but again, breaking news reports. If there's anything drastic that again happens, then that'll of course warrant a breaking news live stream or video, whatever it may be over the weekend. Just keep that in mind so you guys aren't like crazy surprised if there's a slight lack in content, because it's going to be going directly in hand with what the Mets are doing for sure. Give me 1 second, everybody. Shout out to Jacob for sending me the Trey Turner Mets design. That's funny. Yep. Yes. Paul, you tagged me into the Nick Martinez thing. Yep. Just as I was alluding to. Hold on, everybody. Corey Dickerson as a left-hand bat, not a terrible idea. I would like the Mets to do more, though. You know, there's a lot of guys out there that wouldn't be bad fits. Oh my God, Acuna got traded to the Yanks. Wow, that's crazy. What's even crazier is getting blocked so easily. It's absurd. Wow, congratulations to the little spam account that had to get that out there. This is kids' favorite time of the year, and it's even worse now with Twitter, where everyone can be verified. So there are so many fake accounts out there now that aren't getting caught quick enough by Twitter to be banned. You're seeing so many fake reports. It's ridiculous. It's so bad. It's so bad. You know, I don't mind some of the things that are changing with Twitter, but it's just a bad time if you're a baseball fan. It's bad. This is their peak, man. It sucks. It's annoying. But yeah, guys, I don't I've been rambling. I just wanted to share all my raw thoughts on everything that's going on. So from this point, I'll just continue answering your questions in the comments, and then we'll wrap up the show. That'll pretty much do her. Like I said, I don't think anything crazy is going. I'm hating the fake checkmark thing. Yeah, I do have the fake checkmark thing. I'm not gonna lie. However, I'm going to be applying for a normal one once it's possible, because I know that Elon did make note that verification was going to be approved for all different types of forms of content creators. Always bothered me seeing a schmuck of a writer who's simply a blogger who doesn't get more than 100 clicks on a good day on his articles that he posts daily, and somehow, some way, he deserves to be approved, but I don't. That shit bothers me. So I want that. I like the perks that come with Twitter as well, especially because now you can co-tweet, you can organize things you want, and I have to be on Twitter every day naturally for work. But yeah, I hope that I can be officially verified and not just looking that way because of the fact that I paid the monthly. A troll account had Fuzzy almost chuck his phone. I'm not surprised. The same thing will happen to me too. You're afraid deGrom's leaving? We'll see what happens. Anything can happen. Early offseason. I don't think we're going to find out anything drastic with Jake for a little bit still. Resign Nimmo is more important than deGrom, in my opinion. That's the opinions of many. It's crazy to say, but you're not the only one that feels that way. Oh, Mets just posted Jeff's reaction to winning the Silver Slugger. That's awesome. Will Lindor switch to second base? No. Nope. Not happening. And Jeff doesn't mind switching positions. That's why he played in corner outfield plenty of times this past year. He'll handle it. He's a team player now. He's not being as selfish, which is great. You can tell clearly. That's what led him to being a more positive and phenomenal hitter for the Mets this year. Shane Bieber trade. We'll talk about it, but I don't think Biebs is going to get traded, but anything can happen in MLB offseason. We've seen crazier things transpire. We need an actual DH Vogelback as a pinch hitter. We need a legitimate bat in the DH spot. I think Vogel's a solid DH. However, I would like there to be more offensive security. I would like more pop in this lineup, for sure. Thank you for the dono, John. Beatty definitely has potential to become a starter throughout the year, depending on how Escobar does and how the Mets utilize Escobar. What do you think about Profar to platoon with Canna in left field? I think Profar is going to want to sign somewhere, however, Morning Beer, where he can be more so of a everyday player. I think that can go in hand. I think there's an appeal with Profar because he plays both the infield and outfield. I love that versatility. Solid player. And could be at the top of your lineup. However, I think Profar, if he's going to go leave the Padres, I think he's going to go somewhere where he gets, a good like 600 to 700 at bats, like where he's playing every day. And I don't foresee where that would be the case with the Mets. Conforto, I'm not opposed to considering Conforto for DH. I think that's actually very interesting, low risk, high reward idea for the Mets. I really do. The concern is that as of now, the Mets only have a level of interest in Conforto should they allow Brandon Nimmo to leave. So that's the thing. My take on Conforto will go directly in hand with what happens with Nimmo, if that makes sense. Yes, Lance, I agree that he deserved to have one. I think it's just the fact that the Mets did not want to offer that to him because they didn't want him to potentially accept it regarding the qualifying offer. Considering Steve Cohen's respect for Mets history and just how short the list is of great career Mets, do you think there's more urgency in front office to re-sign deGrom than the media is reporting? I do. To an extent, I do. I think the Mets do have a good amount of urgency with trying to get Jake done as soon as they can. Because again, if the Mets can bring back Jake, the sooner the better, so that way they can focus elsewhere than throughout the offseason. And yes, they multitask. Billy Epler's working more phones than imaginable. He's got He's got 2 phones, one for the plug and one for the hoe. Like he's got them all. He's got them all lined up. Walter White fashion, baby. He's just hiding one. What was it, in his classroom in the ceiling? Well, whatever it was. But I'm losing track here. Sorry. Going on tangents quick here. Tyler Anderson and Trey Turner are coming back to LA. Y'all can have Bellinger and the return of Kane and Justin Turner. There's actually a very solid chance that Trey Turner does not return to LA. Tyler Anderson, I agree, is, though, however. And I don't need Cody Bellinger. Thank you, though. I appreciate the offer. But could you imagine, could you imagine in 2019 me saying that I would like to take a gamble on Michael Conforto more than I would Cody Bellinger? Now, granted, I was still biased in 2019. I love Michael. But still, Cody Bellinger has fallen off of a cliff so hard because of the injuries that he's dealt over the past 2 years. He's a guy where a team has to take an experiment on him. He's a Joey Gallo now. His swing is so broken. And what do those two guys have in common? They have so much launch in their swing. Stupid launch. The amount of movement that goes in their swing with being big-bodied left-handed bats is ridiculous. Bellinger may come back and have himself a very good career still, but he has an uphill battle right now. Do I think I would be a great GM? No, I think I'd be stressed as hell is what I think, because I get stressed enough just preparing and making content. I can only imagine being in those meeting rooms and wanting a player so bad and then not getting him and having to take a deep breath and transition right away. I do the same thing just being as a content creator. I can only imagine if I was making decisions. Jesus. I could see Josh Bell going to Houston. So could I. They really want him at the trade deadline. I could see Bell and Contreras going to Houston, as a matter of fact. 2 guys that they both really want at the trade deadline. What's going on with Khalil Lee? Nothing. He's just a guy that's likely going to stay in the minors. He doesn't really have much MLB upside at this point. Have that nice home run against the Angels. That was cool, but with the depth for this Mets team, I don't see really a path for Lee to make a statement, unfortunately. What do I see a catcher for us? I foresee a world where the Mets try desperately hard to get rid of James McCann. And should that happen, they will go with Alvarez and Ito next year, which is the best route to go. I look like Conforto. Yeah, I get that a lot. I don't see that as much as others do, but I do get that quite often. What about Yohan Camargo? Nah, I'm okay. Thank you, though. Of course you'd say that, Josh. You should ask your wife how she feels about Camargo. I'm curious. Let's see. Are we forgetting that Conforto hasn't taken a pro at bat in over a year? No, we discussed that actually deeply in our discussions on Conforto, by the way. Matthew. Do I really think that GMs publicize their real targets? No. No, I do not. I don't think they publicize it nearly to the group. When you hear rumors, the rumors come from one talking about free agents. Rumors come from the player's agent. They do not come from the other way around. And there are times where agents flat out lie and say there's a bigger market for said player than what there is. Here's me going on a little bit of a rant here because it's factual. When you are in discussions and negotiations with a player and say things are getting a little tight, you're not getting the price you're looking for, you put out there, make it known to the media. They can report it right away. What's going on? Okay. And that the player is around this range or something along those lines. The whole goal for the media, they pair with the agents like this. Scott Boras is ready to give his freaking stupid lines that he says all the time that he writes down when he gets drunk at night on describing players, going from the King of Queens now to Finding Nemo. Wow, so creative, Scott. Bravo. Not going to rag on you too much, Scott, though, because you represent Nimmo. We want him back, so keep it a buck with you. point I'm trying to make is that there are a lot of things you're going to see leaked in the media, and it's only going to be to a degree factual. And that's why it's frustrating, because you're always going to see things that, you're like, oh, you're bluffing. I'm like, when I discuss it in videos or streams, I'm not bluffing. I'm just relaying the information that we find out. If that information ends up to be not factual or, overblown than what is, it sucks, but that's not on me. Don't blame me for that. That's all I say, because I'm just relaying the message, essentially, to have these discussions, because like you, I'm following along with everything. It drives me nuts. Am I bald? No, I'm not bald. Hold on, let me fix the hair a little bit. No, I'm not bald. See there? I get high fades, so I definitely probably look like I have a buzzed head, but I like it that way, so I don't mind. It's a wig. Yeah, it's totally a wig, Slants. You got me. I just got glasses too, guys. I'm gonna wear them if we do like any extended live streams this offseason. These my buddy Richie for Jets and Knicks Media wears told me to get them. They're like the blue lights, so that way my eyes don't hurt nearly as bad when I'm looking at my monitors and my box light and everything in front of me. So you will see me wear these sometimes. I look more like Chris Bryant. What? I love you too, Stoney. Thank you. That's crazy. You guys are funny. But guys, one last thing before we get out of here, because we are going to be wrapping up the live show here in a minute. One last question for you all. What day will the Mets make their first move this offseason? First official move. First either internal free agent signing of re-signing a big player or external. When is the first true move of the Mets offseason going to be? Is it going to be tonight? Is it going to be tomorrow? Is it going to be Saturday? Is it going to be Sunday? Do you think it's going to be next week? Let me know. I want to hear it before we get out of here. Ray did says, Henry, no. I'm not talking about Edwin Diaz. I'm not talking about Cookie. I'm talking about like an actual thing since free agency officially began. That isn't a minor league move either. My gut and hope that the first thing is on Monday. That's what I'm hoping for. But again, if something happens sooner, we'll discuss it. Just will be in a different format, something along those lines. Jessica, I love you too. Thank you so much for the kind words. Mets sign Rodon next week. I mean, he still has 10 days to reject his qualifying offer. So Rodon's market ain't going to close for a bit. That's going to drag out. And of course, if something crazy did happen tonight, we'll come back. We'll either do a live show or a video on it. But guys, that is going to do it for our first official free agent frenzy show, our first of many offseason discussions here on the channel with free agency officially live now. So stay tuned. More content will come out on the channel in the coming days. Should news that's warranted of discussion come out, it may be a little delayed, but it will be out there no less at some point. And of course, next week will be more consistent content. We have 3 things come out today. Michael Conforto being sought after by the Mets, and Brandon Nimmo leaves. Cookie Carrasco signing his contract with the Mets. The Mets picking up his team option, rather, at $14 million over 1 year. Yesterday, we came out 5 free agent targets video. Ignore the number 5 and number 4 because they mean nothing now for the most part. Number 5 already signed with the Padres again. Number 4, Jock Pearson, given the qualifying offer, beyond unlikely he's going to be a Mets option now. There's a focus on 3, 2, and 1. So apologies about that. Check out other forms of content if you haven't already. Thank you all so much for watching. Love you to death. So excited for this Mets offseason. I'm prepared to be hurt again, but we're going to be hurt and excited as Mets fans together. Have a great night, folks. Peace out. This is me signing out, and let's go Mets, baby. Talk to you guys soon.